Sometimes I fully believe that the only difference between the taste in garments of a Catholic priest and me is this little cutout and my lipstick. Anyway, that is not the topic today. Today, the topic is spiritual isolation, which is a valid practice in some religions. We can debate whether that is right or wrong, but it has to be remembered that in a religious setting, when spiritual isolation, for example, becoming a nun, is accepted, you don't really become a nun and stay on your own. You stay with other sisters. It's the same in a whole bunch of other religions where monasteries are common, where being a monk is common. You don't stay a monk on your own, you stay a monk amongst other people. And yes, your personal interactions with the world become a lot more limited because of how you chose to live your life, but you are still not out there on your lonesome. What I did notice is that a lot of people will have a personal spirituality, which means that it's something that they practice on their own, and then they will add isolation on top of it, which is not very healthy. And honestly, if you're practicing with spirits and you truly believe in it, it doesn't matter if you believe that the spirit is part of you or part of the greater whole. They will oftentimes push you away from such choices. And don't get me wrong, it is quite common for people to fall into something like spirituality. And for the first few years, they're like really devout because it's like a new thing, it's like a new hobby. It's the same if you suddenly discovered your love for trains. You might be talking about nothing but trains for ever so long. But eventually, you kind of have to balance your life back into a healthy balance as to what is your hobby, what is your spirituality, and what is your day to day stuff, what kind of life you're leading. I'm gonna read you an excerpt to illustrate the problem. I'm not gonna tell you what channel this is from, but this was in their community update, and I feel like even discussing that will perhaps put on too much eyes on it. So if you know where this is from, don't tell other people in the comment section where this is from, and don't like go to other people to go to that channel. This is not something that I should be disclosing probably, but I have looked into videos of this channel before and I am planning to look into one of their big ones. One of the videos that is bringing in a lot of fear and misinformation for people, and I kind of want to sit down and analyze it, but I don't really want to cause them problems. They are obviously on their own path. They are obviously living their own life. They have what they have, they do what they do. I don't want to like start some sort of internet flame war. This is not what it is about. It's just that because I am planning on covering a video of theirs, I looked into their community updates and I found something that has rung very big alarm bells to me. And I thought, well, I can't probably talk with this person directly because they wouldn't like me just due to the spirituality that I practice. But, and it's not like they will listen to me anyway, but at the very least, I can talk with other people that might have similar opinions and arrive at similar ideas. I'm gonna just read what they wrote, okay? People criticize and judge why I don't have friends, but the biggest reason why is the more I've spent with these beings, the less I feel I resonate with humans. I love humanity and people, don't get me wrong, but this energy is so pure and so full of goodness that becomes so addictive and healing that it becomes so difficult to let go. I found that my tribe is those without the physical form, and I'm accepting that the more I gain my years. It's not easy, it's extremely lonely most days, and I'm dealing with the reality that most will judge and hate me. But the fact remains I don't like liars, manipulators, and users who will take my time for granted. And the more I'm surrounded by beings with close to perfection of love, the less I want to be surrounded by people who don't have the same values. I'm continuously on the road of healing and transformation, and I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon. I love the person I've grown into, even though I doubt myself and my worth often. Doesn't mean that I still don't deserve good things. And it's because of Thoth and others that I'm gently reminded of this truth. What makes me worried is that this person is feeling extremely lonely, but they have given up on the idea of ever being friends with people, like real life people, because they're so into their own spirituality, and they're also projecting that all of the people are liars, manipulators, and want to waste their time. Now, you see, your spirituality won't hold your hand when you're crying. Your spirituality won't make you soup when you're ill. Your spirituality won't take care of your dog if you're having an emergency. Your spirituality is part of you, but it's not another person. To project these qualities of my spirits are my friends, therefore I don't need any, is a bit like saying I fell in love with this romance novel because the guy inside this romance novel is just so good. He is my perfect guy. You're still lonely in real life because these kind of connections are not gonna satisfy you in the way that real life connections will. And don't get me wrong, you can have relationships with your spirituality and with your spirits, but you also need real life people. And here's the thing, I have always been an introvert. I have always been a exceptional recluse. And I have had bad things happen to me due to other people. I understand people are scary, especially if you have several bad reactions to other people because they have done something scummy to you. You kind of have this wish to just go back and into your shell and don't interact with the world anymore, but that is not a very sane or healthy way of living. I always try to push myself to still interact with the world the way that I thought that I should. I got the jobs that I thought that I should. I did not fit in, and that really hit me, and that made me withdraw, as there was a time when I became a housewife or when I would take up a job but I don't really form connections with people that I'm working with. One change that spirituality has brought to me is kind of gently divert my path towards people that I can spend my time with and enjoy their company. And the more people I expose myself to, the more of a variety of life I am seeing, and the more of a benefit I'm seeing in forming connections with other people. It was done on my turf with my fears in mind, but in the end, it was a good thing, to a point where right now in my life, I'm finding myself in a place where, well, I'm married, so that is one close individual to me, but also I have two tabletops that I'm playing with two separate different groups of people. And I have a guild in Guild Wars 2 that I'm also spending time with. And from that guild, there are people whom I spend more time with compared to other people. And every single time, it would start as a want and a desire. Like, oh, I really wish that I could share this game with somebody. My husband's not too into it. And the friend that tried playing it dropped it pretty soon. I really wish that I could share my game with somebody. I really wish that I could play a tabletop again. I miss the sessions that I used to have with my husband and his friends. And it's such a shame that we're not having them anymore, and creating the same circumstances won't exactly work because people move on. They move on to other things that they want to do with their life, to other venues. But you know, life finds a way, it brings you opportunities. And spirituality doesn't allow me to give up on those opportunities, if anything. I have accepted invitations to 2 tabletops, one of which was very shaky. And I thought, oh, this was a terrible idea. I should leave. And intuitively and through spiritual communication, it was like, well, I can leave if I want to, but maybe I should start, maybe I should try sticking it out just for a little while longer. And 3 weeks later, the company that I'm playing with actually is gelling pretty well, and people are actually creating connections and friendships, and they're sharing a bit more about themselves and the kind of person that they are and the kind of interests that they have outside of that field of tabletops. And when you start having these kind of connections, the people that know you will then invite you to other circles depending on what you're doing. If you start with playing a tabletop and you create a good atmosphere and create friends, eventually one person goes, hey, I'm also part of this other thing and we're looking for one more. Does anyone want to join? And then you meet more people and more friends. And all you really need is like one point of connection, something that brings you together to that person. This could be a same workplace, because then you have something to talk when it comes to your workplace. This could be the same places that you frequent, because then you will be able to talk about said places. For example, there is this old man that I meet quite often when he walks his dog, because I tend to go out and take photographs. He knows that I like nature, so every single time when he sees me, he strikes up a conversation and he tries to tell me about what has happened in nature that I might have missed. Sure, it's not very meaningful because, for example, I get to listen about how a crow was fighting 2 seagulls. But it is human connection, and you can build from there. You can then extend that conversation. You can meet that person more often. You can synchronize your walk times. You can spend the time in togetherness. That is how connections form, and that is how connections grow. And honestly, without my spirituality, I think I would have been too scared to do a lot of things that I'm doing, because it takes a lot to reach out to other people that you don't know. It takes a lot to take a risk on a group when you don't know anything about the group when you're joining. And I think I kind of reached a point where if I try and it fails, oh well, I'll try again somewhere else. But I have nothing to lose and everything to gain, because if I try an activity and it succeeds, I might create further connections. I might expand my circle. I might find more people that I feel comfortable with, that I am going to be messaging with, no matter we are engaging in this activity or not. And that is what relationships are all about. And yes, they're messy because people can be in a bad mood, people can be irrational, people can have their own things going on. But learning to deal with it and learning to deal with another person that won't always be just focused on you, but also focused on their own things, is kind of part of life. And it is kind of an integral part of life. And when you're avoiding that, you're effectively just being scared. And there's nothing bad with that. A lot of people are scared, but it is not very sane when you then go, well, yes, I am lonely. Yes, I am not getting what I need as a person, but I'm gonna try and replace that need with my spirituality. My spirits are my friends, so I don't need anyone else. That's not true. Even in that statement, you can read it and you can see that that's not true, because the person still says, I am lonely, and that's not good. So that was those are my thoughts on the matter. I hope that it helps somebody. Don't get closed off, and don't really stop trying to form connections with other people, even if it is scary. Another person won't share the same traits as you on everything. They might not even like your spirituality, for example. They might not like the football team that you're supporting. They might not like the school that you went to because they went to a rival school. These kind of differences, they honestly, in healthy environment, mean very little. As in, if you or this person is so attached to that difference being there that the only conversations that will happen is you went to school A and I went to school B, we can never be friends, then obviously move on and find healthier people to spend your time with. But in general, you will connect on the things that are not differences but are similarities. You went to school A, I went to school B. Let's have a bit of a quip, a bit of a laugh, and now let's proceed to enjoy this activity C that we're both into, which is normally how healthy connections go. And obviously, if one person gets super offended about the whole school A and school B thing, that thing gets dropped. Of course, there are bigger differences like sexuality or skin tone and everything, or anything on those lines, where if one side is very much against you because you have the kind of um, characteristics that they find to be amoral, even though it's not your fault, and like they're being racist or they're being sexist, or obviously you can't forge a friendship with that sort of person, so you would be avoiding those sort of people. But majority of people aren't like that. Majority of people are very normal and open, and sure, maybe their religion is completely opposite to yours, but unless all of you are in a very, very strict environment where those kind of characteristics are absolutely pitched against one another, what will happen is that for the most part, you won't talk about that and you will connect onto something else that both of you enjoy. And these kind of characteristics, of course, matter a lot more if you're like selecting a life partner for yourself and not just a friend. But that is a whole entirely different matter altogether. And for that one, you kind of have to make sure that you align on that you're not just like gonna have fights over religious upbringing of children or whether or not you want children, and the big life decisions that you're planning on sharing with another human being. That's where you would place your choices there. For majority of people, you will just bond over the things that you have in common, and there's more to you than just one little thing. Majority of people that are spiritual will still like have a job and have a hobby and have a childhood, have things to talk about, have books that they like, movies that they like, or anything else in that matter. Majority of people are not one-trick ponies, which allows us to relate to one another, even if part of us is weirder or less ordinary. Like if you're following a spirituality of one, that doesn't really matter. If you're trying to relate to another being, another human being over your love of photography, that's just not something that's, gonna come in. But yeah, the basis of this video is I know that at the start of the spirituality, it can be intoxicating and overwhelming, and you want to do nothing but this one thing, but it's not very balanced. And eventually, you do need to come back to a sort of a balance of regular life and what you're doing spiritually. And the regular balance of life does include having people around you, having connections, having people that you like, having people in your area. It can include having a family, it cannot include having a family, depending on who you are. But the point is, you need people. You are not alone, you're not a singular island in the middle of nowhere. People that adopt that mentality tend to not have a very good time, because it just so happens that we are a social species and you were born into that. I understand if the sociality of your species has hurt you, but that doesn't mean that you stop trying. thank you for watching. I hope that this message helps somebody. I do hope. I mean, if you know the creator and can pass the same message along in a way that doesn't make them feel attacked, do so, but don't like disclose who this person is and don't point fingers because that wasn't what this was about. I think if I did it, then they would see all of the demon stuff on my channel and would just declare them me their enemy. And that would completely make my words seem morally wrong, which is unfortunate, but that is how it is with some people. So thank you for watching. I have plenty of other occult videos that are kind of brewing. More of a not talked about bits and bobs, some very niche topics that the majority of people don't really think about or engage with. I also have a thought about doing a couple of like reaction videos, but it's not like I'm watching and reacting, but more like I watch these videos ahead of time and then I disclose my own experiences and my own opinions about the thing in the YouTube video so that I don't violate any kind of guidelines with sharing too much of another person's content. And there are also going to be very provocative videos from me because I do those sometimes. That is meant to pull in the audience that is not my current audience and try to explain my personal spirituality to them in a way that perhaps closes the us versus them gap a little bit. And of course, there are a lot of how do you do this? How do you do that sort of videos that I can do and will probably do. In other words, I have a lot of occult video ideas brewing, but also this is a gaming channel, so if you subscribe to me, you're gonna see some gameplay and you're gonna see some thinky thoughts on gameplay too, so be prepared for that. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'm gonna see you in another video of mine. Toodaloo.